The transport ship docked at a massive structure floating in space. Through the small window, John saw that it wasn't a planet or moon, but something built by the Zontari. It was flat and circular, stretching out for miles, with sections that glowed different colors. This was Cultivation Platform Alpha, the largest farm in the Zontari Empire. John and the other captives were herded off the ship like cattle. The gravity felt strange, a little lighter than Earth. The air smelled different too. Not fresh like his farm, but artificial, with a hint of something sweet and unfamiliar. A tall Zontari with skin that flashed red and gold approached the group. Unlike the others John had seen, this one wore elaborate decorations on its 4 arms. "I am Overseer Vexel," the thought pushed into all their minds at once. "You belong to Cultivation Platform Alpha now. You work, you eat, you refuse, you die. Simple." The captives were split into groups. John was pushed into a line with 6 others, none of them human. One looked almost like a tree walking on 2 trunk-like legs. Another had 6 limbs and blue fur covering its body. The blue-furred creature ended up in the same sleeping area as John. The room was small, with 2 hard platforms for beds and nothing else. No windows, no decorations, just walls that glowed faintly to provide light. "I am Krath," the blue creature said in John's mind. Its actual mouth made clicking sounds that didn't match the words John heard. "Third cycle here. You are new. Earth being?" John nodded. "My name is John Miller. I'm a human. A farmer from Earth." Krath's fur rippled in what might have been a laugh. "Farmer? Good. Zontari like farmers. Maybe you live longer." "How long have you been here?" John asked. 3 growth cycles. "About 2 Earth years, I think." Krath pointed to a pattern shaved into his fur. "They mark us each cycle. Some here have many marks. No one leaves. No one escapes Zontari." John wasn't ready to accept that. "There's always a way. Tell me about this place. What do they grow here?" Krath explained that the cultivation platform was divided into sectors. Each sector grew different plants, but not plants like on Earth. These were crystal plants that absorbed radiation instead of sunlight. They grew in special soil mixed with minerals from asteroids. The crystals were used for food, medicine, and even fuel for Zontari ships. "Tomorrow you work in Sector 7, Krath said. "Hard sector, many die there." John didn't sleep well that night. The bed was too hard, the light never fully dimmed, and his mind kept returning to his farm on Earth. Was Rusty okay? Had anyone noticed he was missing? Would he ever see home again? Morning came with a harsh buzzing sound. Guards took John and Krath to a large room where hundreds of different alien species were eating from bowls of colorful paste. John's bowl contained something blue that tasted like salty oatmeal. It wasn't good, but he forced himself to eat. Knowing he would need strength after the meal, John was taken to Sector 7. It was a vast area filled with rows of strange plants. They weren't green like Earth plants, but clear like glass with purple veins running through them. They grew from black soil that sparkled with metallic flecks. Above, instead of sunlight, panels emitted pulsing radiation that the plants absorbed. Zontari with green markings on its 4 arms approached John. "You are the Earth farmer. I am Cultivation Director Mirazine. You will tend the crystal thoria plants. They provide essential nutrients for our people." Mirazine showed John how to care for the plants. They needed precise amounts of water mixed with special minerals. Their soil needed to be turned daily. The crystals that grew from them had to be harvested at exactly the right time. Not too early, not too late. To John's surprise, it wasn't that different from farming on Earth. Plants were plants, even alien crystal ones. They needed care, attention, and understanding. As strange as everything was, working with growing things made John feel a little more at ease. Weeks passed. John worked hard and observed everything. He learned the routines of the guards, the feeding times, the shift changes. He studied the Zontari language until he could understand their actual speech, not just their telepathic messages. He made mental maps of the sectors he was allowed to visit. One day, a section of crystal plants began to wilt. The crystals turned cloudy and stopped growing. The Zontari guards panicked. Mirazine rushed to inspect the damage. "Blight," she announced. "Sector must be purged." John stepped forward, forgetting his place. "Wait, don't destroy them. I've seen something like this on Earth?" Mirazine turned her black eyes to him. "Explain." "It's spreading from plant to plant. But if you rotate the crops, move healthy plants to new soil and let this soil rest, you can stop it from spreading." Mirazine seemed skeptical but desperate. "If you fail, you die with the plants." John was allowed to try his method. He organized other workers to carefully move healthy plants to fresh soil. He treated the infected soil with a mixture of minerals he had noticed helped strengthen weak plants. Within days, the spread of the blight stopped. The saved plants began to thrive again. Mirazine was impressed. "You have unusual knowledge, Earth Farmer. Perhaps you will be useful in ways we did not expect." After that, John was given more responsibility. He was allowed to move between sectors to advise on growing techniques. This freedom gave him more chances to observe and learn. He discovered that despite their advanced technology, the Zontari had lost much of their knowledge about natural growing processes. Centuries of using technology had made them dependent on machines and less understanding of life itself. Most importantly, John learned their weakness. The Zontari had modified their bodies over generations. They could no longer eat ordinary food. They needed specific nutrients that only came from their crystal plants. Without these plants, they would starve within days. At night, John shared his discoveries with Krath and a few other trusted captives. A bird-like being named Trill who worked in communications. A four-eyed creature called Dorn who maintained the water systems. "The Zontari seem powerful," John told his new friends. "But they depend on us more than they know. And someday they'll learn what happens when you take a farmer from his land and expect him to quietly tend yours instead." Krath's fur rippled with doubt. "No one escapes the Zontari, no one." John smiled for the first time since his capture. "There's always a first time, and I'm starting to think that first might be us." A year passed on the cultivation platform. John no longer counted days as he once did on his farm. Instead, he measured time by growth cycles of the crystal plants. 3 full cycles had come and gone since his arrival. With each cycle, his understanding of the Zontari and their weaknesses grew. John now had his own small laboratory, where he tested soil samples and plant variations. Cultivation Director Mirazine had come to rely on his farming knowledge. She did not see that John was using this trust to prepare for something the Zontari would never expect: rebellion. In his lab, John had created a special strain of crystal plant. These looked normal but produced slightly different nutrients. When eaten, these nutrients would not harm the Zontari, but would make them dizzy and confused for several hours. John had tested small amounts on food sent to minor guards, watching carefully as they became disoriented during their shifts. "Tonight," John whispered to Krath as they passed in the corridor. This was their signal. The plan would begin when the lights dimmed for the sleep cycle. Krath passed the message to Trill, who told Dorn, who informed the others. In total, 12 captives from different species were part of John's plan. Each had a specific role based on their skills and access. When the sleep cycle began, John mixed his special crystal powder into the ventilation system for the guard quarters. Within an hour, the night guards were stumbling and confused, unable to sound alarms or call for help. "Now," John said to Krath, they moved quickly through the corridors. Using access codes John had memorized by watching the guards, Trill flew ahead, her keen eyes watching for any alert Zontari. They reached the communications center where Trill worked during day cycles. The room was empty except for one guard slumped in his chair, affected by John's crystal powder. "Hurry," John told Trill. "We won't have much time." Trill's nimble fingers worked the Zontari controls. John had spent months learning their language and technology from observation. Between his knowledge and Trill's access, they managed to open a communication channel pointed toward Earth. John spoke clearly into the transmitter. "This is John Miller from Earth. I was taken by alien beings called the Zontari. Their empire spans 3 star systems. They abduct beings from many worlds for slave labor. Earth is in danger. He quickly explained the Zontari's technology, their weaknesses, and included coordinates for their homeworld. "We cannot escape yet," John continued, "but Earth must prepare. The Zontari will come for more humans. Their weakness is their dependence on specific nutrients from crystal plants. Without these, they cannot survive. I will send more information." Alarm suddenly blared throughout the station. Red lights flashed in the corridors. "They've discovered us." Krath's fur stood on end with fear. John finished quickly. "This is John Miller. Help Earth prepare. I will try to return with—" The communication cut off as the door to the center burst open. Overseer Vexel stood there, his skin flashing angry red patterns. Behind him were guards wearing protective masks that had filtered out John's crystal. Powder. Earth creature. Vexel's thoughts hammered into John's mind with painful force. "You betray Zontari trust." The guards seized John, Krath, Trill, and the others. They were taken to a large chamber where many high-ranking Zontari had gathered, including Mirazine. Her skin patterns showed what John had learned to recognize as disappointment. "The human sent messages to his world," Vexel announced to the assembly. "He revealed Zontari secrets. He poisoned guards." Mirazine stepped forward. "No permanent harm was done. The human has valuable knowledge. We should not waste this resource." "The human is dangerous," Vexel insisted. "All involved must be terminated." A new Zontari entered the chamber. This one was larger than the others, with elaborate decorations and skin that shifted through colors John had never seen on others. The room went silent. "Supreme Commander Zalvek," Mirazine's thoughts whispered in explanation to John. Zalvek examined John with black eyes that seemed to see through him. "This small creature caused this disruption? Interesting. Not termination? I have a better use for troublemakers?" 3 days later, John and his fellow rebels were loaded onto a transport ship. Krath trembled beside him. "We go to Cultivation Platform Delta," Krath explained, his thoughts weak with fear. "Orbits toxic moon of SciFiPrime. Worst punishment. No one survives more than one cycle there." The journey was short. When they arrived, John immediately understood Krath's fear. Platform Delta was smaller, darker, and clearly older than Alpha. The air smelled wrong, burning John's lungs with each breath. A Zontari with battle scars across his iridescent skin met them at the dock. "I am Commander Dravkur." "You now serve?" "Under my authority, your lives mean nothing here. Your only value is what you produce before you die." The captives were assigned to different sectors. John was sent to a high-security area where red crystal plants grew. These plants were different from those on Alpha. They pulsed with their own light and seemed almost alive in a way the others didn't. "Weapon plants," a thin, gray-skinned worker whispered to John as they tended the rows. "Crystals used for Zontari. Bioweapons and ship defenses, very dangerous, very valuable." John was watched more closely than before. Guards followed his every move. His food was tested for tampering. At night he was kept in isolation, away from Krath and the others, but the Zontari had made a critical mistake. In sending John to their military production facility, they had given him access to their most important plants. Here he could learn how their weapons worked. Here he could find a way to truly hurt them. Weeks passed in the harsh conditions. Of Platform Delta, many workers collapsed from the toxic air. Some never got up again. John grew thinner, his skin paled, but his mind remained sharp and focused. During work shifts, he secretly collected tiny samples of the red crystal plants. At night, in his cell, he studied them, testing their properties with the few tools he could hide from the guards. Commander Dravkur took special interest in breaking John's spirit. He assigned John the most difficult tasks, reduced his food rations, and sometimes visited his cell just to remind him of his helplessness. "Your message never reached Earth," Dravkur told him during one such visit. "The transmission was too weak. Your world remains ignorant, unprotected. Soon we will harvest more of your kind." John said nothing, but inside, a fire burned. Whether his message had reached Earth or not, he would find another way. The more he learned about the weapon plants, the more he understood how they could be used against their masters. One night as John lay on his hard bed, a whisper came from the air vent near the floor. John Miller, Earth human, it was Trill's voice in his mind. Others gather, many platforms now know your name. You give hope? We wait for your signal, John smiled in the darkness. His rebellion had not ended. It had only just begun. 2 more growth cycles passed on Platform Delta. John's body had grown thin and hard from the harsh conditions, but his mind remained sharp. In secret, he had created something the Zontari would never expect, a new type of crystal plant that could disrupt their entire empire. The red weapon plants contained powerful compounds that the Zontari used in their ship defenses. By carefully crossbreeding different strains, John had developed a variation that looked normal but produced crystals with an unstable energy pattern. When activated, these crystals would cause a chain reaction in any standard Zontari power system. John had allies everywhere now. Workers passed messages between platforms using supply ships. Guards who belonged to species once free before Zontari conquest secretly helped the growing resistance. Even some lower caste Zontari, treated poorly by their own kind, provided information. The perfect opportunity arrived with the announcement of the Grand Cultivation Ceremony. Once every 3 cycles, high-ranking Zontari from across the Empire gathered to celebrate the harvest. All platforms would send representatives and sample crops to SciFiPrime. Platform Delta would send its weapon crystals. Carefully inspected by Commander Dravker himself, John knew this was their chance. The night before the ceremony he switched the sample crystals with his modified ones. The inspection team, unfamiliar with the subtle differences John had created, noticed nothing wrong. Tomorrow, John whispered to Krath through the air vent between their cells, tell everyone to be ready. The day of the ceremony, John and other select workers were ordered to prepare special crystal displays. Under heavy guard, they loaded the samples onto a small transport ship. John's modified crystals were among them. Destined for the main celebration on SciFiPrime. As the ceremony began, John watched the clock. The modified crystals would need 3 hours in the radiation field of the main celebration before they became fully unstable. When the time approached, John gave the signal. Across Platform Delta, workers caused small disruptions, a broken pipe here, a minor fire there, nothing serious enough to raise major alarms, but enough to distract guards and create confusion. In the chaos, John and a small group including Krath and Trill made their way to the emergency shuttle bay. A sympathetic lower caste Zontari named Vreen had provided access codes and disabled some security systems. If we succeed, your people will be free too, John had promised Vreen. Just as they reached the shuttle bay, the first explosion rocked Platform Delta. The modified crystals at the ceremony had begun their chain reaction, disrupting power systems across all connected Zontari networks. Emergency lights flashed, alarms blared. Hurry! John called to his friends. They boarded a small supply ship as the platform shook around them. Commander Dravker appeared at the bay entrance, his skin flashing with rage. Earth creature! He shouted both aloud and in John's mind. What have you done? John activated the ship's launch sequence. I'm going home, he said simply, and your empire will never be the same. The bay doors opened automatically as part of the emergency protocols. The small ship shot out into space just as secondary explosions began consuming sections of Platform Delta. Payoret the ship away from the chaos. Through the view screen, John watched as power failures spread across nearby Zontari vessels. The modified crystals had worked better than he'd hoped, creating a cascade failure throughout their connected systems. We need to get to Earth, John told his friends. But it's far from here. The journey will take months, even with Zontari technology. We follow you, John Miller, Trill said, her bird-like features showing what John had learned was her species. Version of a smile, you gave us hope when there was none. The small band of escaped slaves set course for Earth. Their ship was well stocked with supplies intended for Zontari outposts. More importantly, it carried samples of all the crystal plants, including John's special variations. These would be Earth's best defense against future Zontari attacks. During the long journey, John taught his alien friends about Earth. He showed them how to speak English words with their different mouths and bodies. He explained human customs and warned them about how their appearance might frighten people at first. Earth people don't know about alien life yet, he explained. Our arrival will change everything for them. The journey took 5 months in the small ship. As they approached the solar system, John felt a mix of joy and anxiety. What would Earth be like after 5 years? Would anyone remember him? Would Earth's governments listen to his warnings about the Zontari? They aimed the ship for a remote area in Nebraska, not far from John's old farm. As they entered Earth's atmosphere, John looked out at the familiar blue sky he had missed for so long. Home, he whispered. The ship landed in a cornfield very similar to the one John had been taken from. It was night and the field was empty. John was the first to step outside, breathing deeply of Earth's air. It smelled of soil and plants and rain, all the things he had missed in the sterile environment of the Zontari platforms. It smells alive, Krath said, his blue fur rippling in the gentle breeze. They hid the ship as best they could and walked toward the nearest road. John was surprised to find it paved now. It had been gravel when he left. After an hour of walking, they reached a small town. It had grown since John had last seen it, with new buildings and bright lights. A truck driver stopped for them, his eyes wide at the sight of John's alien companions. Are those ... costumes? The driver asked nervously. John shook his head. No. Sir, they're real. And we need to talk to someone in authority right away. The world is in danger. The driver made a call on his cell phone, another new technology that had become common during John's absence. Within an hour, the area was swarming with police, then military personnel, then government officials in dark suits. John told his story over and over. At first, many didn't believe him, despite the obvious evidence of his alien friends and their ship. But when scientists examined the crystal plants and the Zontari technology, the truth became undeniable. The Zontari will come looking for us, John explained to a room full of world leaders gathered in Washington, D.C. My escape and the damage to their systems will only delay them. We need to prepare. Why should Earth involve itself in your conflict? Asked one skeptical official. Because the Zontari won't stop with me, John replied. They see humans as a resource to be harvested. They'll come for more of us. But now we have their weakness, the crystal plants. With these we can defend ourselves. The debate continued for days, but in the end, John's evidence was too compelling to ignore. Earth began preparing for a possible Zontari invasion. Using the knowledge and technology John had brought back. John visited his old farm, now owned by a young couple who had heard stories about the farmer who vanished one night. They welcomed him, listening in awe to his story. As John stood in his old fields, looking up at the stars, he knew the Zontari would come. But this time Earth would be ready, and he would be here to help defend his home. 3 years passed since John's return to Earth. The world had changed in ways no one could have imagined before. Nations that once fought each other now worked together against a common threat. The crystal plants John brought back were grown in secure facilities around the globe. Scientists studied Zontari technology and created new defenses based on John's knowledge. John led the Earth Defense program from a new facility built near his old farm in Nebraska. The simple farmhouse had been expanded into a command center, but John made sure they kept some fields of corn and wheat growing nearby. Never forget what we're fighting for, he often told his team. Krath, Trill, and the other aliens who escaped with John became Earth's first ambassadors to other worlds. They helped humans understand the wider galaxy and contacted their home planets when possible. Some of their worlds sent representatives to Earth, forming the beginning of an alliance against the Zontari Empire. John stood in a field of corn one evening, watching the sunset. The golden light reminded him of Nebraska summers from his youth. Beside him stood Lisa Shun, a brilliant scientist who had helped develop Earth's new defense systems and who had also captured John's heart over the past year. The early warning system just picked up something, Lisa said quietly. A fleet of ships heading toward our solar system. The pattern matches what you described as Zantari vessels. John nodded. He had been expecting this day. How long do we have? 3 days at their current speed. Then we're as ready as we'll ever be. John took her hand. Send the alert. It's time. The next 3 days were a blur of activity. Defense systems around Earth were activated. The special weapons John had helped design using modified crystal technology were prepared. Military forces worldwide went on high alert. Civilians in major cities were moved to underground shelters. Just in case, when the Zantari fleet arrived, they found Earth waiting for them. 20 large warships took position around the planet. Their weapon systems powered up, ready to devastate major cities until humans surrendered. From his command center, John watched the screens tracking the Zantari ships. Open the communication channel, he ordered. The largest Zantari ship responded immediately. On the screen appeared a familiar face, Supreme Commander Zalvek, his iridescent skin flashing with dark patterns. Earth creatures, Zalvek's thoughts, pushed into the minds of everyone in the command center. You harbor our escaped property. You possess stolen Zantari technology. Surrender the human John Miller and all Zantari materials, or we will destroy your cities one by one. John stepped forward. Supreme Commander Zalvek, I am John Miller. I suggest you look more closely at what awaits you here. John gave the signal. Around the planet, hidden defense platforms activated. They sent targeted energy pulses at the Zantari ships, not attacking them directly, but disrupting their power systems in the same way John's modified crystals had done years before. On screen, Zalvek's eyes widened as warning alarms sounded. On his ship, what is this? What have you done? The same thing I did on cultivation platform Delta, John explained. But on a much larger scale. Your ships are now running on emergency power only. Your weapons are disabled. You are, as we say on Earth, sitting ducks. Zalvek's skin darkened with rage. Impossible. No primitive world could develop such technology so quickly. We had help, John said, not just from me, from every species you've ever enslaved. Your empire is built on taking the best from other worlds. Did you think none of them would ever fight back? Reports came in from around the solar system. The Zantari fleet was paralyzed, unable to attack or retreat. Their ships drifted in space, running on minimal emergency systems. You could destroy. US now, Zalvek acknowledged, his mental voice quieter. We could, John agreed, but that's not what I want. What do you want, Earth Farmer? I want to talk. Face to face on my world this time. 24 hours later, a small Zantari shuttle landed at the Nebraska facility. Supreme Commander Zalvek emerged, flanked by guards. They were led to a conference room where John waited with Earth's leaders and representatives from other worlds that had joined their alliance. Welcome to Earth, John said. Please sit down. Zalvek's forearms twitched with tension, but he sat. You have crippled our fleet, damaged our empire. What more do you want? A new relationship? John replied. The old Zantari empire is finished. You built it on slavery and fear. But there's another way, John explained his proposal. The Zantari would free all enslaved species and worlds. In exchange, Earth and its allies would share the modified crystal plant technology that the Zantari needed to survive. Your people modified themselves too much, John explained. You can't live without the nutrients from the crystal plants. But you don't need an empire of slaves to grow them. We can show you how to cultivate them yourselves. Why would you help? It's after what we did? Zalvek asked. Because a good farmer doesn't destroy, John said simply. He nurtures, he helps things grow. Your empire was built on taking, but the universe works better when we give. The negotiations lasted for weeks. There were difficult moments when it seemed everything would fall apart. But in the end, the Zantari had no choice. Their empire was collapsing from within as news of Earth's resistance spread to every enslaved world. A new agreement was signed, the First Interstellar Confederation. Free worlds would trade and cooperate with no species ruling over others. The Zantari would keep their homeworld and join as equals. Not Masters. As part of the agreement, John Miller was named Earth's representative to the new Confederation Council. His first act was to establish a center for agricultural exchange, where farming techniques from hundreds of worlds could be shared and improved. 5 years to the day after his return to Earth, John stood again in his cornfield. The stalks swayed in the breeze, golden in the setting sun. Above, strange ships occasionally crossed the sky. Peaceful visitors now, not invaders, Lisa joined him, carrying their 1-year-old daughter. Thinking about how much has changed? She asked. John nodded. From a farmer to a captive to a leader of worlds. Not the life I expected. Do you miss just being a farmer? John smiled and looked at his family, then up at the stars that no longer seemed so distant or threatening. Still a farmer at heart, he said. I'm just working with bigger fields now. In the distance, a Zontari ship landed at the nearby spaceport. Former Supreme Commander Zalvek, now simply the Zontari representative, would be joining them for dinner to discuss a new agricultural project. John Miller, the human farmer who was taken from his fields and returned to rule, walked toward his home with his family. Behind him, the corn swayed in the evening breeze. Rooted in the same soil his grandfather had tilled, Earth soil, now the heart of a peaceful confederation of worlds. Commander Olivia Hayes checked her equipment one last time as she walked around the small clearing. The alien plants of Kepler 438 swayed gently in the breeze. This was her third day on the surface, and so far everything seemed peaceful. The planet had a beautiful purple sky, with 2 small moons visible even in daylight. Her small research vessel, the Artemis, sat in the clearing behind her, its silver hull reflecting the light of the nearby star. Log entry 37, Olivia spoke, into her wrist device. Air samples show high oxygen content. Plant life appears similar to Earth ferns, but with purple coloration. No signs of animal life yet, though sensor readings suggest small creatures may live underground. She bent down to collect another soil sample. Earth had been exploring distant planets for nearly 30 years now, but this was the furthest human expedition to date. Olivia felt proud to be the first person to walk on this world, even if it was just for a standard survey mission. Her communication device beeped. Commander Hayes, routine check-in complete. Next contact in 6 hours. Earth. Command out. Olivia smiled. Despite being light years from home, the regular check-ins made her feel less alone. She packed up her collection kit and headed back toward her ship. The sun would set soon, and she wanted to run some tests on her samples before dark. Just as she reached the ship's entry ramp, her sensors began to beep urgently. Something was approaching from orbit, something big. Olivia rushed inside, quickly sealing the door behind her. "Computer, scan the approaching vessel," she ordered, sliding into the pilot's seat. The screen flickered to life. Unknown ship. Design not matching any Earth or allied species records. Size suggests a military vessel. Olivia's heart beat faster. First contact with a new alien species was not part of her mission plan. She was a scientist, not a diplomat. She pressed the emergency broadcast button. Earth Command, this is Commander Hayes. Unknown vessel approaching my position on Kepler 438b, requesting instructions. And the ship shook violently. The lights flickered and died, plunging the cabin into darkness. Only the dim emergency lights remained. Warning, the computer announced. External energy field detected. All systems powering down. Communication array offline. Olivia grabbed her emergency kit from under the console. Inside was a small personal weapon, extra food rations, and a backup communication device. But before she could activate anything, a strange humming filled the air. The walls of her ship seemed to shimmer as if they were becoming transparent. 3 tall figures appeared inside the ship. They hadn't opened any doors, they had simply passed through the hull. Their bodies were thin and gray, with 4 arms and large, dark eyes that reflected no light. They wore sleek, black armor with glowing blue symbols. "Human," the tallest one said, its voice sounding like several people speaking at once. "You have entered Zanari space. Olivia stood tall, despite her fear. This planet was marked as uninhabited in our surveys. I am on a peaceful scientific mission. The alien made a clicking sound that might have been laughter. Your primitive scans would not detect our monitoring stations. The Zanari Imperium has claimed this sector for 2,000 years. I apologize for the misunderstanding, Olivia said carefully. I will leave immediately and report that this area is not open for exploration. The alien stepped closer. That will not be possible. Your species has been expanding too quickly. The Zanari Council wishes to understand Earth's capabilities and intentions. The other two aliens moved to either side of Olivia. She considered reaching for her weapon but knew it would be useless against beings that could walk through solid walls. I am Commander Olivia Hayes of the Earth Exploration Service. Under the Galactic Treaty of New Luna, I request safe passage back to Earth territory. The alien tilted its head. We are not signatories to your human treaties. You will come with. You asked for questioning? As they surrounded her, Olivia felt a sharp pain in her neck. One of the aliens had injected her with something. As her vision began to blur, she remembered her training. When captured, stay calm, observe everything. Look for opportunities. And remember that all Earth personnel had emergency protocols built into their bodies. Unknown to the aliens, the moment Olivia's heart rate had spiked above danger levels, the tiny quantum transmitter embedded near her heart had sent a burst. Signal. The message was simple, her ID code, her last known coordinates, and a single status word, captured. She felt herself being lifted and carried from her ship. Through dimming consciousness, she saw her beloved Artemis growing smaller as the aliens took her toward their much larger vessel hovering above the clearing. The ship was dark and curved like a giant stingray floating in the purple sky. Your species ventures where it doesn't belong, the Zanari commander said. You will provide us with Earth's defense protocols. Olivia didn't answer as the sedative took full effect. Her last thoughts before blackness claimed her were not of fear, but of confidence. Earth would know what happened. Earth would respond. The Zanari ship rose quickly through the atmosphere, its advanced engines making barely a sound. Inside, the aliens placed Olivia in a small cell with transparent walls. Medical devices were attached to her arms and head, monitoring her vital signs and beginning the process of scanning her mind. Will she provide useful information? Asked a younger Zanari officer. The commander touched a control panel, bringing up a holographic display of Earth. She is alone here, far from her home world. Humans are social creatures who break easily in isolation. She will tell us everything we need to know. And if she resists, then we have methods to extract information directly. But that won't be necessary. What can one human do against the might of the Zanari Imperium? Her people don't even know she's been taken. The ship accelerated to faster-than-light speed, leaving the Kepler system behind. A small blinking light on Olivia's wrist. Device went unnoticed by the aliens. The emergency beacon was still transmitting on a frequency the Zanari couldn't detect, sending regular pulses that would help Earth forces track the ship's path through space. As the Zanari vessel disappeared into the darkness between stars, they believed they had captured a lone human explorer with no backup. They were wrong. Very wrong. Back at Earth Command Center, alarms were already sounding, rescue plans were already forming. And Earth's hidden fleet, a force the Zanari didn't even know existed, was beginning to mobilize.